Hey, thank you everyone for being here and welcome to the Story Studio session at the Forum. My name's Aaron, I work with the Skoll Foundation, and at Skoll I co-run the Emerging Leaders Initiative. As a quick introduction, the Emerging Leaders Initiative is a program run by Skoll in partnership with the MasterCard Foundation that really focuses on accelerating the growth and impact of the next generation of social entrepreneurs. The program does this a number of ways. One of which is by amplifying their voices through the power of storytelling, which is why we're here today. Today we have 6 amazing speakers that I've had the privilege of getting to know over the past few days. And one at a time they'll come up and share a little bit about themselves with everyone around here. Their backgrounds are different, they work in countries all over the world, and they tackle all different sorts of issues. But the one thing they have in common is that they're all inspiring. So I was thinking about what inspiring meant to me, and it was a little difficult to describe at first, but last night I was at the opening plenary, and quick show of hands, how many people were at the opening plenary last night? Okay, just about, okay, everyone, this is great. So they had the intro video. That was, to me, I was sitting there and that too made me feel inspired. So I was trying to drill down on what about that video was so inspiring, and I think it was a couple things. One, it was the visuals, being able to see pictures and clips of both things that I've directly worked on, that I relate to and I feel passionate about, and also other things that I've seen in the news but I feel, and seeing those faces and seeing their smiles just builds empathy inside me. And then layered on top of that was Maya Angelou's poem, Still We Rise. And in particular, there is a point where she was saying, you can shoot me with your words, you can cut me with your lies, you can kill me with your hatefulness, but like life still, I rise. And I heard it and it just felt so powerful and it resonated with me. And I think it made me want to get out there and do something more. And I think why storytelling is so powerful is it's the weaving of those two things together, the narrative and the impact on the work that you do. And the same way I felt inspired last night, I feel inspired hearing from all of them. And my ask of everyone today is, as you listen to the speakers, please think about what inspires you. Think about what resonates. Think about what you relate to. Think about what questions you'd want to know more about. After we hear from all our speakers, we'll have time for Q&A at the end, so please keep it in the back of your mind. And so 6 speakers and a Q&A is a lot to get done in an hour, so we'll just kick it off right now. Our first speaker is currently a postgraduate student at the University of Edinburgh. On top of being a student, she's actively involved with Future of America. And that's an education-focused organization that's working to tackle the issue of child streetism in Ghana. Please, everyone, give a warm round of applause for Dorcas.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so, and thanks for coming once again to see us. So individuals, as we all know, do not live in a vacuum. They do not live in a vacuum, but a society. And the success of people are usually the contributing factors of invisible hands that work behind the scenes. I'm Dr. Samu Mensah, a MasterCard scholar at the University of Edinburgh, as Erin said, and I'm going to share a story that's dubbed The Kind Strangers. So in 2014, I had the opportunity to pursue an internship with the Bank of America Merrill Lynch in London. It was exciting for 2 reasons. First, that was the first time I was going to fly a plane. And second, it was the first time I was leaving Ghana. But the joys of the moments could not be shared with my family because I knew it would send my mother running to the bank just to get a loan to buy clothes, shoes, and the basic necessities I needed for the internship. In those moments, 2 people came around, Mr. Baini and Auntie Sheila. Auntie is a normal Ghanaian phenomenon, so yeah. And these two people taught me kindness. So Mr. Biney just gave me 500 pounds for the journey. That was the first time I had ever met him. He just handed such huge amounts of money to me. And Auntie Sheila just bought clothes. Frankly speaking, I've never seen this lady ever in my life. To date, I don't even know how she looks like because we've never met. And their act of kindness taught me that there is so much value in being kind to a stranger. And with that, I made a decision that my life and my purpose was to support and raise others to be better than myself. You know, society creates structures which are inherently unequal, sometimes to prevent any form of social or economic mobility. Some people have power, others don't. Some people are rich, others are not. Male, female, black and white. I speak in binaries, but I know it's more complicated than that. The idea of sharing your vulnerability or sharing your privilege with others has become inherently difficult in modern days. And I ask myself, why is that the case? So as a volunteer or leader in Future of Africa, no, America, I have seen young people like myself who have shared, in fact, not shared, sacrificed their resources, their time, their energy in helping street children do normal mathematics, read, and writing. And I have seen them doing this to build just a community of trust and support for these children who, under normal circumstances, expect adults and human beings just like us to show them off. But looking at these people who are not waiting, or these volunteers who are not waiting for someone to tell them to do what they do, I realized how our engagement with these children had moved our thinking about street children in general in Ghana from, oh, these bad children, or from strangers, into a place of humanity, into a place of humans, which they really are, just like us. And over the period of time in Edinburgh and back home, I've realized how our stereotypical mindsets create labels. Labels that sometimes strip people off the ladder of humanity, so make people less human. And every time we do this as human beings, history has shown that bad things always happen. So, like rats in the Holocaust, and like cockroaches in the Rwandan genocide. But more subtly now, we can have labels like refugees, terrorists, migrants, or probably in the binaries like black and white, or male or female. What label have you given someone that has deprived them of your kindness, your empathy, and your love? Do you recognize your privilege? Do you recognize the labels? Do you recognize your power? If you do, I implore you to be Mr. Bineys and Auntie Sheilas, people who are not afraid to share their privilege, people who are not afraid. The word afraid is important because they do not fear to provide people opportunities, social and economic opportunities, to even be better than themselves. In effect, there is so much value in being kind to strangers. If not for that, some people like myself will not be standing here today. Because strangers like you, and I are first of all humans. Thank you very much.
My goodness, how do you feel? Yeah. Oh my goodness, such a good speech.
Thank you very much.
You know, you talk a lot about binaries, and you know, it kind of feeds into the session topic around fault lines. And I guess like a general question for you, why do you think there isn't more empathy in the world? Or why do you think people don't put themselves in other people's shoes enough? Because I feel like it's something that I think I try to do and you think you try to do, but people don't do it enough. So there's a disconnect somewhere.
I think the first thing is, do you consider the second person human, just like you? Because if you realize that you are human, you have needs, you want things, you are, you want access to things just like other people also want access to things. You realize that your needs are not, they might not be similar, but would also be sort of, your aspirations would be the same as the aspirations of others. If we could start thinking about people in terms of being human, just like us, and even though they might be different, like they might have come from different ways, come from different backgrounds, but at the basic level, they are humans, we will start realizing that it's actually good for us to treat people just like we will want them to treat us, or just like we will want to treat ourselves. So yeah, I feel like it's human first and everything else doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Really.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
I also wanted to touch base, because we had talked the other day, so right now you've been working a lot in the educational space. But you were talking about how you've been inspired by your studies to shift a little bit and talk and focus a little more on economic opportunities. Could you share with everyone just a little, like, what inspired you and what direction you're kind of hoping to head in?
Okay. So before I came to Edinburgh, I was focused on the social impact bit. But when I came and through my studies, I realized how economic policies underpin what we see in the social realm. Like, if people had access to economic opportunities, a lot of the social problems we see today wouldn't be happening, because they will have access to them by virtue of the fact that they can easily pay for them, and they would, like, healthcare, education wouldn't be much of a problem. I'll share a story with regards to that. So I work with street children, and some of the stories of this street, if you listen to the stories that brought these street children to the street, one of them came to the street because he misplaced $2, 10 Ghana cedis, and couldn't go back to face his mother. And if you look at that and you're like, what is $2 to someone who has enough money to provide to their children? What would make $2 let a child run away from home and come and stay in the streets where he or she is exposed to sexual assaults and verbal abuse? What is $2? So linking my experiences to what I was learning in the classroom from theories of industrialization, import substitution, and all those, I realized it would be good for us to start tackling the economic aspect of people, give people opportunities to be self-dependent, opportunities to rely on their income. And it's not just any income at all that you're just paying people, but income that's substantial enough to give them the kind of standard of living that we want for ourselves.
Oh, thank you so much. Everyone give another round of applause for Dorcas.
Thank you.
So our next storyteller is the founder and executive director of the Sani Foundation in Zambia. The Sani Foundation's mission is to advocate for the full inclusion of people with intellectual disabilities into Zambian society. Her story's amazing. She is amazing. Please welcome to the stage, Michelle.
Hello, everyone, and thank you again. So I'm from Zambia, and Zambia, like most African countries, is a country that's progressing and developing. And all the while, one group of people keeps falling further and further behind. People with intellectual disabilities are like a complex mystery that society just can't be bothered to figure out, so we just choose to ignore them. And I would like to stand here today and tell you just how many people with intellectual disabilities are being neglected in Zambia, but I can't because we don't even have statistics on intellectual disability. They don't count, so they don't even bother to count them. They just don't. I'm Michelle Chimuka, and I am the founder and director of Sani Foundation, an organization working to promote inclusion for people with intellectual disabilities in Zambia. I grew up with a brother with an intellectual disability, Down syndrome to be specific. And that opened up my eyes to just how flawed my society was. We grew up in the exact same house, under the exact same circumstances, but I was the only one that got to go to school, got to play with other kids in the neighborhood, got to get a job, and essentially have a life. And all this was because he didn't fit the social constructs of normal. And as we grew up, I wondered and I worried about what the rest of his life would look like. And so I founded the Sunny Foundation to give him and other young people with intellectual disabilities a chance to also have a life. And what we do is we provide individualized, relevant, and holistic support to young adults with intellectual disabilities. And beyond that support, we help them to find jobs in the open labor market. And I'll tell you very specifically about Diana, one of our members. When she joined our program quite early on, all she said was, I want to cook. She didn't know how to, but she loved to watch people in the kitchen. She loved to be around people doing that sort of thing. And quite frankly, she liked to eat. So we went to work. We supported her. We trained her. And she got an internship as a kitchen assistant in a nonprofit organization. A couple of months later, the organization came back to us and says, we think she's brilliant. We want to hire her. We want to pay her. And they did. And Diana got her first job working in the food industry. Today, Diana works in a Subway fast food restaurant and is probably one of the highest earners in her family. No, not probably, she is one of the highest earners in her family. And essentially, this is what we all want. We want to pursue our dreams. We want to follow our passion. We want choice. And that is what is unique about our model in Zambia. It is person-centered. It values personal choice. And really, we're really working to change the narrative around intellectual disabilities, to challenge and transform people's perceptions around disability. We really want people to move from thinking about people with intellectual disabilities as beneficiaries who are deserving of pity and charity, to really considering them as dependable and loyal employees, as friends and coworkers that you sit and have a laugh with, you know, as active and participating citizens. Because really, employees with intellectual disabilities, it's been proven, have better attendance and retention records than people without disabilities. Hiring people with disabilities gives companies more innovation, new perspectives, and access to newer markets. So really, at the end of the day, inclusion isn't just that it's the right thing to do, it makes business and economic sense. Why wouldn't we do it? Thank you.
Oh, you're so good. My goodness. You know, as someone, so I'll just start off by saying I'm someone who has not a lot of experience or knowledge with the intellectual disability field and who works in it or the space or like what's needed. I guess kind of starting as an introduction question, if you had one or two or just something to say to people who just to spread broad awareness about it, what would you say?
I think it's really with what I was talking about changing perceptions. We were in a session in here earlier about making markets accessible to marginalized groups. And one of the speakers talked about how vulnerable groups are lumped together. And even within the disability community, disability is so broad and multidimensional and complex. And when people say people with disabilities, in a Zambian context, for instance, I will talk specifically about my own country. When people talk about disability, people think of physical disability, visual impairment, hearing impairment. Lots of times we say we work in intellectual disability and people are like, what? So we sort of have to then break it down. Yeah. So it comes to that point of people not even knowing about this issue. And that's always the challenge to people, educate yourself, meet someone. And every time I speak to somebody in Zambia again, they will always have a cousin, an aunt, a neighbor, someone at church who has a disability, but nobody knows anything about it. So literally, people need to start by educating themselves. Yeah. Make a friend.
Yeah. And the other thing I was really curious about, I love that your foundation has a really holistic approach. So it's everything from vocational training to finding them jobs in the marketplace and sector. I'm wondering, from your perspective, is there a gap, or is there a particular problem that you're trying to address, or a specific win you're looking for in the next year or two?
I won't beat on this drum again about changing perceptions, because I think I've been quite clear about that. But I think we really want people with intellectual disabilities to be everywhere you go. You should be able to run into someone with an intellectual disability in the supermarket, at church, at school, and all of these different things. We want them to be part of the daily life, because that changes so much. Even just with our experiences of what exists now in Zambia is that there are programs that are sheltered for people with disability, because they're not considered able to work in the open labor market. And that's the one thing that we do. We want to get people with disabilities out mingling with people without disabilities, because that's the only way real change is going to happen.
I have faith with you. It's going to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is the Executive Director of B-Lab East Africa. A lot of y'all might be familiar with B-Lab, Business for Good. She is running and in charge of making this happen in East Africa. No big deal. Everybody, please give a warm welcome to Olivia.
Hello, everyone. It is lovely being here with you all this week at school, and it's my pleasure today to talk to you about my journey involving inclusion and why businesses should be involved in inclusion. So I grew up in Nairobi, Kenya, and when I was 16 years old, we got a chance to go to the Nairobi Stock Exchange. I was in an all-girls high school, and the stock exchange wanted to start bringing women into the market. They only had 2 female brokers working at the time. And standing there and watching the trading floor open and close, I found it exhilarating. I wanted to be part of that energy. And so I set my goal. I wanted to go work at Wall Street. Fast forward 5 years later, and I was on a bus ride from Philadelphia to New York for a job interview at Wall Street. And this was around the time the financial crisis was happening. And I found myself at a crossroad, something that I debated during that bus ride. Research had clearly shown that when executives were making decisions on housing loans and all these complex structures that they'd implemented, they had not considered the negative impact their decisions would have on their clients. They just looked at bottom line. Was this something that I wanted to be a part of? Did I want to work for organizations that only considered bottom line and did not consider other stakeholders and did not give them a voice? Thankfully, the answer was no. And so I decided to go search for such organizations. Goodness of this search is it led me back home. I moved back to Nairobi and started looking for these types of opportunities. I found myself working for the microfinance sector. For those who don't know, MFIs, they provide credit and access to different financial tools to low-income, poor, and very poor people. So those were considered unbankable by the mainstream financial industries. And I worked as a social analyst, going out to different MFIs in West, East, and South Africa, and interacting with their clients and trying to understand, were these MFIs making an impact in their lives? Did they feel included in the financial sector? And the answer was yes. Most of these people felt empowered. They felt proud that they were now contributing to the economy. They felt they had a voice. They felt included. This was powerful to me. And I wondered, were other sectors doing this, or is it just specific for MFIs? And so again, I went searching. And this search led me to my tribe at B-Lab. B-Lab works with businesses that use the power of business for good. These are companies that are competing not just to be best in the world, but best for the world. Companies that consider all their stakeholders when they're making decisions, not just the bottom line. And this resonated with me. Coming from Kenya, where our employment rate is high, income inequality is high, our environment is going through a horrible impact right now, despite having UNEP headquartered there. Having these types of companies in our region could create that positive change that I was looking for. We work with companies on different initiatives. One of them is B Corp certification. B Corps meet a high bar in terms of social and environmental performance. Early on, I got to interact with Daproim Africa. They are a B Corp based out of Nairobi. Daproim was founded by Steve Kamanja. His childhood dream was to create a company that would employ the unemployable. These were mainly youth who did not have higher education. And how they supported them was to give them employment or an apprenticeship where they'd give them technical training and then offer them financing to be able to complete their higher education degree. And once they completed that, they'd offer them soft skills training as well as job placement. These were the types of companies I wanted to work for. Companies that were profit-focused, people-focused, triple bottom line focused. And so today, I encourage those of you who are not part of this tribe to join the tribe of businesses that are using the power of business for good. Thank you.
Such poise.
I learned from the best.
You know, what I find really interesting about B-Lab going to East Africa is the translating of something that's been very US focused into something more international. My question for you is, what are some of the gaps or needs that need to be addressed as you're translating something that's largely America focused to something that's more East Africa focused?
That's a great question. So just to kind of shift that, we've actually been doing global expansion for the last 5-6 years. And so we started in South America and then progressed to other countries. So the East Africa hub started about 3 months ago. Biggest hurdle for us is, and this is an opportunity as well, though social entrepreneurship is booming, it's still a very young industry in Kenya, and it's still a very young concept in East Africa. So trying to have these conversations with companies, it makes sense to them, it's something that they're doing, but it still feels a bit Western. Yeah. So how do we translate this into a local context? How do we make them feel part of a community? And one thing that is working to address this challenge is actually showing them examples of how other regions that were still at a young stage with social entrepreneurship came together and worked on building that and creating that narrative for their region. So it's a challenge that it's still really young, but we see it as an opportunity for us to start shaping and articulating what this actually means in East Africa.
Yeah. Awesome. And you mentioned that, so B-Lab East Africa is relatively new, 3 months, yeah? Just curious from a personal perspective, what is it like to build something from the ground up so new, and like, what's your vision for things moving forward for everyone?
So building something from the ground up, I find that exciting, and especially since it's in my hometown, it makes me really, really happy. Anyone at B-Lab would tell you this has been my dream for about 6 years. So bringing the B-Lab, the B movement to East Africa is a dream come true for me. Having people now talk about the things that matter is important. It's stressful. There are moments you go, sleepless at night, but it's all worth it because I know with the types of the companies we're talking to, the people we're engaging with, it's so positive and so energetic. It is really inspiring to see Africans trying to find solutions for Africa and Africans who found solutions for Africa.
Such boys, thank you so much. Our next storyteller is a program and development officer from International Bridges to Justice. He's devoted his entire career to human rights. That's ranged from everything from fighting for prisoners' rights on death row in the US to assisting with the prosecution of war crimes at The Hague. His story and his background is unbelievable, and he's a great person. Please welcome Andrew.
All around the world, countries have laws on the books that protect the rights of their people. However, there is a fissure, a fault line, that divides what the law says and what happens in reality on the ground. Now, an example of this is torture. Torture is forbidden in most countries, yet it is one of the most used forms of police investigation in the world today. My name is Andrew Ozanian, and my organization, International Bridges to Justice, works to bridge that divide between the law and reality. We believe that rule of law is the foundation, the very bedrock of a stable society. And we support local lawyers working to defend the rights of people in their communities who are trapped in broken criminal justice systems. We have lawyers in over 40 countries, yet we find ourselves asking, how can we scale? The demand for our work is outstripping the resources that we have available. We don't have time to wait. We need to make access to justice a reality right now. The answer is technology. I'm working on a project called the Justice Hub. And the logic behind it is that system scaling is so much more powerful than simple organizational scale. What do I mean by that? I mean that to change a system, you can't just look at part of that system. You have to look at the whole thing. And that is why, with the Justice Hub, we're not just looking at bar associations, lawyers, ministries of justice, and judges. We're actually looking at all of the people in society, ordinary people, faith groups, youth. Everyone has something to contribute for justice. Now, I didn't always think that I could do the kind of work that I do. I remember reading, watching some of the stories, the amazing stories that courageous human rights, people working in human rights do all around the world. And I was so inspired. I remember watching and thinking, wow, that's exactly what I want to do, but I don't want to do it over there. I didn't want to get shot at. And honestly, some of these places, they frighten me, and rightly so. They should. And nevertheless, my conviction, my determination to do human rights law, it led me to my organization, IBJ. And I remember I confessed that secret to my CEO, Karen Che, who's actually sat just over there. And I was actually surprised at her response. She said, Andrew, people like you don't want to get shot at, but actually, you are a bridge that connects with others like yourself who have a passion. But they don't think that they could work in difficult environments like that. And in that moment, I actually realized that what I thought was a weakness was actually one of my biggest strengths. So if I can do it, you can too. And so this is kind of a call to action. I don't care if you're not a lawyer. It doesn't matter. You have something to contribute for justice. Whether that's collaboration, solution sharing, or targeted assistance, financial or otherwise, you have something to contribute for justice. As the internet expands, even lawyers working in rural parts of the world are now getting access to smartphones day to day. For the first time, these defenders can be part of a living, breathing network that brings legal development into the fourth industrial revolution of big data and data analytics. Together, we can harness the power of technology to bridge the fault lines in legal systems around the world. Thank you.
How do you feel? Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting. I mean, I love international bridges to justice. It's something that I've always personally been a really big fan of.
That was really great to hear.
Yeah. I just love the work that you do. And actually, you didn't describe it in your talk today, but you were talking to me before about equilibrium change in IBJ's work, in specific to Cambodia. So I was hoping you could just share with everyone, if you can remember what it was before and through IBJ's work where it is now.
Yeah, absolutely. So Cambodia, when we first went there, we actually saw that, and it's quite sad actually, but we actually saw that torture was not this kind of horrific thing that people were so upset by. This was just standard routine. This was just a really kind of almost boring kind of process by which the police would arrest people, they would torture, they would get their confession, and then case closed. And it was just a systematic process. Now, what we realized was that you can't actually change this by just looking at one particular group. Our solution is early access to trained legal assistance, even for those, especially for those who can't afford it. And we realized that we can't just do that by just talking to lawyers. The equilibrium change that you, as you put it, it's something that can only be achieved by looking at the whole ecosystem of people within the legal system. So it's not just lawyers, it's the judges too. Because many of these judges, they just receive these cases, it's a process, it's what they're used to seeing. So they don't see any different. And all of a sudden, after our trainings and after our encouragement, lawyers are standing up and saying, well, hold on a second. You know, this guy's been tortured. You can clearly see the marks. Surely this doesn't work. The law in Cambodia says that this shouldn't be allowed. So, you know, what do we do? And after a while, the judges, they actually thought, well, yeah, that makes sense. And that's what we mean by for equilibrium change. It's about a mindset shift of all of the different levels within that environment. So, yeah.
Cool. And also on a personal question, just in the broader field of human rights, what is your perspective on our generation and younger generations' engagement with human rights and social justice? Would you say there's been a spiked interest? Would you say there's less of an interest? Just what's your general feeling on the passion or where it's headed?
Yeah, I mean, it's great now because the age of globalization and information, social media, you actually see all of the things that are going on in the world today. And you know, your parents raised you in a certain way, and you know what's wrong and right most of the time. and you watch these things on television and you're shocked, you're appalled. You're like, what is going on over there? That makes absolutely no sense. And then you have an outlet for it now, whereas before you might have just spoken about it to your friends at school or whatever, and you might have been like, hey, that was weird on the radio last night, you know. But now it's like social media. You can instantly engage with that and say, hey, that's awful. You know, let's do something about that. You know, let's do something. And I think that's possible now, whereas it wasn't before. And I think that's why more and more youth are now getting engaged with human rights.
Technology, it's the future.
Exactly.
Thank you, Andrew. So our next voice today is the Assistant General Manager of Educate Girls. Educate Girls is focused on tackling all the issues that are at the core of gender inequality in India's education system. Sounds super complex and super tough. A fun fact about him, in his personal life, he loves extreme sports. Bungee jumping, skydiving, super fun, super amazing person. Everybody please welcome Zishan.
Hello everyone, my name is Zishan, and I'm going to talk about my personal journey in search of happiness and meaning. This journey began 16 years ago, exactly when I was 16 years old. If you would have met me then, you would have seen me wearing a toned jeans, having long hair with a bandana tied on my forehead. And if you would ask me to introduce myself, I would say, Zishan is my name. Ask me again and I'll tell you the same. So that's how I would introduce myself. And it was at that moment I got an opportunity to volunteer in a girls' orphanage just down the street from where I used to live, which I had never noticed in my life. My very good friend told me that, you know, there is an opportunity for volunteering. Would you be interested? And I said, no, you know, I don't want to volunteer. Like, this is all sad stuff. I don't want to do that. So he said, you come with me. You use this opportunity. Come with me. Come for a day. If you don't like it, don't come back. And the day I entered that orphanage, reality hit me in the face. These girls were brought in from various areas of India where they were orphans. They didn't have any parents or caretakers. This organization used to focus on getting them educated and then getting them married, because that was an easy outlet, an easy chance of survival for them, for a future. And reality just hit me in the face. I was like, what is going on? And when I started volunteering there, and I used to organize fun games and activities and sports activities for them, I realized that my small act of organizing a game or a small running race would add so much joy and happiness to them. And that gave me so much joy and happiness. And that's when I decided that I'm not going to go back. I'm going to keep volunteering. And I did that for 6 years. And when I started reflecting back in my own life, that where are these women in my life do they have such problems? I saw it in my own mom. My mom got married when she was just in high school. I was born when she was 18 years old. And I realized that in my family this exists. And I had a conversation with her. We had a conversation with my grandmother. And my mom resumed education. In 2008, when I applied for my MBA course, my mom was my batchmate. She graduated a year before me. Thank you. When I finished university, I saw that I did my business administration bachelor's and a specialization in marketing, and I was very good at marketing. I saw that there was this race where everybody wanted to get placed in a company, get a job in a corporate organization. There was this rat race going on. And I realized that I don't want to be a part of this. My work, the work that I will do in the future, if it adds profits to an organization or increases shareholder value, I don't want to do that work. I want to do a work which leads to happiness, where people's lives change and people are able to fulfill their destiny and realize who they are. And this led me to begin my journey in the development sector. Today, I work with Educate Girls as the head of programs. Me and my team design programs which ensure that girls who are not in school are connected to school. And we are able to work with village communities so that parents will send girls to school. We work with school management committees, which are the PTAs, to make schools better so that girls will stay in school. And we also have a learning program so that girls who have never ever been to school can read, write, and continue their education in school. And we also have a life skills program so that these girls can negotiate with their families that they want to continue their education. We have been working it since the past 9 years, and we've managed to reach out to 3.8 million people in India. We have managed to bring back 150,000 girls back to school. And there are 600,000 children in our learning program at present. I have been in this sector for professionally about 12 years. And I believe, and I strongly believe, that we are in the business of going out of business. We want this sector to shut down someday. And that can only happen when people across the world are happy, healthy, and their rights are realized, and they are able to lead the lives they want to live and the potential that they have for it. And unfortunately, in 2017, business is still booming. And this causes me a lot of great concern, a lot of pain. So I invite you to join me on this journey of finding your own happiness and your own meaning. Because when we wipe their tears, we ourselves stop crying. Thank you very much.
How do you feel? First off, I just want to say, honestly, like tangent, I appreciate the work you do for Educate Girls. You know, when the Women's March in America happened, a lot of women who were friends came to me and said, like, it was amazing that so many women marched in solidarity, but what meant just as much were the men that stood in solidarity with them. So for me, I just appreciate that it's not just a women and a girls issue, but there are men out there who are working just as hard for it. My question for you is, you said business is booming for Educate Girls. You know, and these issues are just too complex to distill down into like one word or one sentence, but what are some of the problems that Educate Girls is really trying hard to address right now?
Yeah. So we work in areas where outcomes related to girls' education are the worst. Parents do not want to send their girls to school because of this existing stereotypical mindset of having clearly defined gender roles for men and gender roles for women. Where women are confined to the households, they are supposed to be cooking, cleaning, and taking care of younger children. So we work in those areas where we are able to also talk to these parents and understand their perspective, that why do they not want to send their girls to school. I'm sure every parent, at the heart of what we do, we believe that every parent wants good for their child because it's their child. But there are these boundaries that are created by society and the structure that exists that leads to all this. And so we try to understand these issues and try to work around these issues. And we do that through our volunteers, our community volunteers. We have about 8,000 volunteers who work with us without a single amount of money we pay them. And it's amazing to see the kind of transformation we see at the field level, the kind of commitment parents, when they know that it's important to get girls educated, they have shown towards girls' education. So it's an amazing work.
One other personal question for everyone else in the audience. You're you're a new father. Has your perspective on everything changed as a result of this?
Perspective on?
Oh, just on girls' education and your work with Educate Girls. Like, has it changed and shaped the way you view your work?
Absolutely. I think when I started doing this work, I realized that I had this simplistic idea of, okay, get them in school. When they are in school, everything is fine. Okay, they are in school, they'll learn and they'll grow. And then when we went to those schools, we realized, oh, these schools do not have basic facilities. So we need to get those facilities. Now they have facilities, but they are not learning anything because the teaching quality is so bad. And now that's what prompted us to come up with a learning program. And at every stage there is a negotiation that women have to do. Women who are educated, who have completed their high school, for them the negotiation is to take up technology and science courses, because families tell them, okay, now you studied, do teaching, go in the education space, go into a women-oriented field. And I've realized that at every level, at every stage, there's a negotiation that women have to do with their family in my country, and it requires a lot of willpower. And that's what prompted us to, come up with a life skills program to support that. So at every stage in the program, we have learned, and we have modified it. We have tried to make it better so that we are covering the holistic picture of, and we can support these girls.
That's so great. Thank you again, Zishan, for everything. Our final storyteller of the day is the executive director of DISA Energy Management. DISA Energy Management is focused on optimizing the design and implementation of renewable energy solutions. Very pertinent, very topical to our world today. So everyone please give a welcome to Fazil.
Okay, thank you very much. As said, my name is Fazil Said Wamalwa. I'm the Managing Director of DISA Energy Management. And essentially, our interest is to use renewable energy systems to reach those who are, what I can say, the left behind, those who cannot be reached by the current energy distribution models. And before probably talking a little bit about what we do, I would like to share something that is a little bit disturbing, that the statistics of the distribution of our energy demand as we speak today. That out of the 7 million people that we are in the world today, about 1.3 billion people do not have access to electricity. They live in total darkness. And out of these 1.3 billion people, 641 million of them are in one part of the world, that is Africa. And it becomes even a little bit disturbing if you remove North Africa and South Africa and describe what we call the sub-Saharan Africa minus South Africa, that using energy per capita as the measure of the quality of life in sustainability studies, you find out that while some parts like the United Kingdom here, on average, each individual has about 7,000 kilowatt hour per capita. In sub-Saharan Africa minus South Africa is 162. It is a disturbing reality, and some countries in the region, when you talk about them, even become bitter, because countries like the Southern Sudan and the Little Burundi, we have no more than 2% of the population accessing electricity as we speak today. The question is this: how can we be talking about social justice, environmental justice, in which you are all called upon to take initiative to halt back the effects of climate change that is attributed to extraction and use of the current energy systems, yet we do not have access to them? We all know that lack of access to energy implies low quality of education systems. It implies low quality of life. It implies low access to information. It implies low access to good quality healthcare systems. Think about in this age when each and every child walks the little Tom and Jerry on TVs, yet in sub-Saharan Africa, as we speak today, about 19 million children wake up in the morning and go to school without access to electricity. The question is this: when is this child going to do assignment? And how can this child be equated and say they're actually on an equal competitive platform with another child elsewhere who actually has access to energy and good quality of light for his studies? My story is not any different from the 19 million children I'm talking about, because I was born and raised in one of the remotest villages in Kenya, in which 19 years down the line, everything is still frozen in time. The children who have been born 29 years down the line since he was born there, they do not have access to electricity. I ran to school every morning, 7 kilometers one way, 7 kilometers back, doing assignment as the last kid in class, and oftentimes missed submitting assignment on time, because the only time I could do an assignment is during early morning hours, because there is no light at home. Even the little tin lamp that uses kerosene that we're using, oftentimes it is not there because we could not afford that. Over the weekend, while other children in other parts of the world spend time watching what I've just mentioned about Tom and Jerry, for us, we were walking in the wild with our mothers, collecting firewood that is no more there because we are finally depleting our ecosystem in a rate that we cannot keep up with. That no more those firewoods are there, yet those women to this day, they are still expected walking the same distances, getting the same to meet the requirement, energy requirement for cooking. Can we really afford to have a smile in this room if that is the state of affairs as it is? It is against this background that DISA Energy Management was born. We wanted to break away from existing models in which we wait upon the government to talk about centralized system of distribution, that we can now focus on distributed systems of reaching those people in rural communities who cannot be reached. Sometimes it requires a simple strategy as encouraging a homestead to invest a little bit of it, buying a solar rechargeable lamp to give a good quality of life to those kids. Essentially, this is what we are doing. And can it be done? Yes, it can be done, and it must be done, because if it is not done, we are done as a people. Thank you.
So powerful. You're just such a powerful speaker. The passion, it's so good. I want to take a moment to ask a little bit more about DISA Energy Management, because that's what you're doing. Tell everyone about like whether, I don't know, is it services, is it products? Like, what is DISA doing to help tackle this issue? And it's so big.
Okay, thank you for the question. Holistically, at DISA Energy Management, we deal with the optimal design and installation of renewable energy systems. We also do a little bit of energy audit and smart investment. The last two assignments, smart investment and energy audit, will help those who already have an access to energy to increase the value of what they have, cutting down the cost, yet maintaining the level of satisfaction. But our main focus majorly that we actually focus on is promoting access to energy for the group that do not have access to electricity. Currently, when you look at the models, like in Kenya, for example, the government is running what you call last mile project, in which they are extending the grid to reach the people. But what you should know is that a grid cannot, there are regions which you say is infeasible because you can't take a grid in a rural, sparsely populated region. It won't make economic sense. In such system, we talk about decentralized, discrete systems that sometimes requires tying together up to 300 homesteads into one concept of a mini grid or a microgrid to reach them. Also, there is another approach in which you talk about single homesteads, in which you can install just a single solar panel that can light up that homestead. So we focus on ensuring that such places are reached using consumer education. In consumer education, we encourage those homesteads that they are on the market. We have rechargeable lamps, some of them going as low as $2. That this lamp is rechargeable, and if you buy this lamp, if you charge it, can last up to 8 hours, and you can charge it using as low as 10 cents of a dollar, and this improves the quality of light in the house and essentially improving the quality of readership of the children, instead of focusing on models of using these kerosene lamps and these tin lamps, which essentially you all know the effects on the health aspect of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, on a personal level, I know that you're a youth mentor in your spare time. Could you just talk a little bit about that and what it means? I mean, because I think a lot of the times we think, oh, just young, but just because we're younger and we're emerging doesn't mean we're not also paying it forward already. So just talk a little bit about that.
Okay, thank you so much. Something about youth mentorship is something I've been doing for quite a good number of years, for the last 11 years, and this was motivated by my personal upbringing, because it's where I come from. Like I am actually among the less than 10% who made beyond primary school, and in high school where I went, actually we are no more than 5 who made 2 colleges. And essentially, it has been something that was born from well wishes. And many years later on, I looked back that what is it that has made me to come this far is because there is someone who actually extended a hand that has seen me come this far. And just to go back in time a little bit, in the year 2005, when I finished my high school, I won a scholarship with a foundation in Kenya called Equity Group Foundation that helped me go through university education as well as personal growth in terms of leadership. And it's from that I realized that when something is sown into you, there is a sense in which morally you are called upon to sow it forward. And since then, I have been participating in these programs at high school levels and also at college levels in terms of sometimes career guidance, speaking to primary schools, speaking to high schools. And as we speak now, even in South Africa, I've been studying, we've been running this kind of programs both on campus and also in suburbs around the neighborhood of the school.
Amazing. Everybody. Good job. Wow, no problem. Thank you. Good, dude. Apologies, I think we went a little longer. We want to leave a little room at the end to mingle and meet with our emerging leaders. But at this point, I'd love for all the leaders to come up. And if there are any thoughts or questions anyone might have, please feel free. It can be to one or to any of them. Yeah, give them. Nobody jump up at all at once. This is fine. Yes.
I'll just make a comment. I really appreciate the personal narratives, and I'm just seeing how powerful that is in both the telling of our stories and the purpose of our work, and then what connects the bodies and the sort of movements that we're all part of. Oh, got it.
No.
Did you catch that?
Yeah.
I just had a question. Here, I'll give it to you.
Hi, those were beautiful stories, so thank you very much for that. I just had a question for Andrew. Knowing about the injustice that happens all around the world, how do you pick and choose your cases?
It's a very interesting question. It has a very simple answer. We don't choose them. It's really that simple. Because we actually believe that everyone, no matter who you are, no matter whether you're poor or whatever, you should have equal access to your human rights.
So do you work on a macro level or a micro level?
On both.
On both, okay.
So, yeah, we work both in country, case by case, and we work on a global level, trying to build a movement to help end torture within our lifetimes.
All right, brilliant, thank you.
Oh, there's one right over there.
So this is a question for all of you and perhaps also for Aaron. I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the process by which you got onto the stage today, what this initiative is, and what kind of, it seems like you're a cohort. If you could describe your experience to us a bit.
Sure, I can talk about the program a little more in general. So it's the result of it's our 4th year. It is a partnership with the Skoll Foundation and MasterCard Foundation. And every year we select a cohort. So we kind of have a mix. So we have half emerging entrepreneurs in the field and half intrapreneurs, because we believe in both. So we select our cohort based off our grantees and connections and that kind of process in general, as far as the experience.
Okay, so I think it's been, for me, very rewarding and a move away from my comfort zone. I wouldn't do this on a normal day unless I'm forced to. So yeah, but it's been really an inspiring moment to come up. I've been rehearsing. Yes, so shout out to all our trainers over the week. But thank you very much for building that kind of confidence in me personally to be able to take the stage. So yeah, thanks.
Wendy?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to that question just a little bit. I'm Wendy Levy, and I am here with the Alliance for Media Arts and Culture, and I also have been working with the Sundance team on storytelling, and I had the absolute honor and privilege of working with, working with these guys on Monday in like a 3-hour session where they came up and were nervous and sweating and not looking at the people. And it's like when we work with the Skoll awardees, the artists are always amazed how smart you all are and how they can take, one idea, one comment about a story, and they're already thinking 5 steps ahead and how to get there. And these guys are exactly the same way, where the growth, I mean, it's as if you guys just went to graduate school the last day or so and just got out there and did this. And the level of connection and passion and urgency is as strong and as incredible as the people on the main stage yesterday. So thank you.
And unless somebody, I see another question. Yeah.
Sorry, back here.
No.
I had a question for Zishan and then a question for Andrew. Zishan, you've done a development impact bond, and I'm really curious if you can talk a little bit about what that was like, because it's rare, I think you're the first in this field, so that's very interesting. And how did you get it to be outcome focused in the way that you have? And for Andrew, if you could talk a little bit more, the 10-second version of the Justice Hub, just to expand a little bit more exactly what you plan to do with this additional technology, because of course your work has been very people focused to date, so I'm interested in the next step on that.
So Educate Girls is implementing the world's first development impact bond in education. And this is basically a results-based payment system structure that we have designed and we are implementing in Rajasthan, in India at the moment. This development impact bond basically brings together a number of parties, a number of people who are committed to social change. And it's an experiment by which organizations, funding organizations, can see committed value in terms of the money that they give. So there is a return on investment bit which is also built into the payment system, but your funding, the funding that funders provide, is targeted to outcomes. And if the outcomes are not achieved, the investor doesn't get paid. So it's a commitment that the service provider, which is Educate Girls, makes to the outcome payer and to the investor that we will achieve a certain level of outcomes in geographies where this work is needed. And if we are not able to achieve that, then the investor, and then we lose a lot of reputation because the investor has put faith in us. And the investor loses out on money. But that's the transaction bit of it. But how it has helped Educate Girls is that we have clearly become focused on our outcomes. So we do not talk about activities anymore. We don't say that how many people are you going to train, or how many members, how many teachers are we going to target. We talk about how many learning gains have been achieved, how many girls have we brought back to school. And we have the freedom to design programmatic activities that directly target those outcomes and get rid of obsolete activities that are not important. Many times in a programmatic cycle, you do a lot of activities which slightly become irrelevant over time. So that has helped us, to revamp our program, look at which components hit the outcomes the best, and focus only on those components and get the maximum outcomes. We are in the we are completing 2 years of the development impact bond. Next year is the last year of the bond. It's basically the focus of the bond is getting girls in school and improving their learning outcomes. 20% focus is enrollment, and 80% is learning outcomes. And we are in the second year. We are just going to get the results of the second year in a few days. In the first year, we were able to achieve 70% of girls back in school and 30% increase in learning outcomes. So we are very excited to, and waiting very anxiously for the results of the second year. But our internal post tests have been good. So hoping for a good result in the second year. Thank you.
10 seconds. essentially, it's an Uber platform, but instead of cars, we direct resources, support, and knowledge. So just a quick example. We are able to now, because of technology, live map the needs in different regions around the world, and those needs can then be seen on a global scale, and it almost forms a sort of menu where people can see who's helping where and where more help is needed. So that way we can direct the resources where they need to go and make it a global effort.
Again, we are out of time, but thank you again, everyone, for coming. It means a lot. I hope you all took away as much as I have. If you have any questions, please come and find us after. Thank you again.